r/AskReddit. What simple mistake has ended lives? I read an article a long time ago about a aircraft maintenance worker not removing a piece of tape that was put in place to protect a sensor during cleaning. The pilot failed to notice during the pre-flight inspection. More than 100 people died in the plane crash. Leaving the stranded vehicle on the road in winter and trying to walk to get help. It happens in rural parts of our province once or twice a year, and they find the body a few days later. They get disoriented and freeze. Baby in the backseat. I'm in childcare, and I'll do some insane things to remember there's a baby back there. Take my shoes off, put my phone back there. Dirty diaper is a reminder. People forget. It doesn't matter if you're a mom, nanny, father, nurse, firefighter. It happens. And yet there's always someone who says I'd never forget my baby. And every year babies die because of it. That all heart attacks have the exact same symptoms. They don't. Trust yourself and seek help as soon as possible if you are afraid that you're having a heart attack. Long ago I was on the crew of a submarine older than me. We went into the shipyard. One of the planned jobs was to install some new equipment that required a hull penetration. One Friday afternoon a shipyard worker drilled a 1/8 inch pilot hole through the hull, intending to come back on Monday to finish the job. The job got cancelled, he got reassigned, and the hole remained. It was covered with duct tape to keep dirt out. The painters went ahead and sprayed over the tape. How deep can a piece of duct tape plus paint hold on a dive? About 218 feet. Before you ask, yes, we survived. Mao's idea to get rid of sparrows. In short, China's great leader Mao had calculated that sparrows eat grain, and if China got rid of them, they would have more food. So they did indeed decimate the sparrow population. They did not consider that sparrows eat lots of insects as well, which started to thrive, including locusts. The locusts ate the grain. Famine. Between 16 and 30 million people died. When he recognized his mistake, he asked the Soviet Union for help, and they secretly shipped sparrows to China. This is a bit a stretch though. Lots of factors led to the famine. Lots of mistakes were made. But of all of them, this was probably the most obviously stupid one. A friend's husband locked himself out of their home. He tried to get in through a window that had security bars. While squeezing through, his foot slipped, and he essentially hung himself on the windowsill. Respected cardiothoracic surgeon tells a guy to stop smoking right outside the hospital doors. Guy turns around and punches him a single time in the head. King hit, or coward punched, whatever you want to call it. He falls to the floor and hits his head a second time. On life support for 4 weeks. Nothing left to save. Not being honest with doctors about Viagra. It has many dangerous drug interactions and can cause a lot of problems from what I've heard. Trust me, the doctor ain't gonna judge you guys. They have seen much more embarrassing things. And it would suck to die because you wanted to hide something just for it to be later stated in your death certificate. I worked at a tire place for a summer, and the first thing they told me was, see that torque wrench? One mistake with this and you can kill a whole family in a matter of seconds. I thought, well, better take this thing seriously. There have been too many instances of rock climbers rappelling off of the ends of their ropes, which could have been easily avoided by tying stopper knots at the ends of their ropes. Bunch of guys were working on a LNG line, and when they cut over to the new line, the pressure regulator sensors were still on the old, disconnected line. So the system automatically started to boost the pressure up as it was sensing low pressure into the LNG lines, while the sensors continues to be on a completely isolated system, causing multiple houses to basically explode due to unexpected high pressure in the system. All thanks to some idiot town council wanting to save money by not having the proper professionals work on the system. There's a super famous example which got made into a film eventually, I think, called Open Water. But the original story was a yacht was found sailing adrift with a baby aboard, and no crew anywhere to be seen. No signs of panic were found. The baby was dehydrated but otherwise fine. Eventually it was assumed that whilst at sea they went for a swim. The sides of yachts stick out of water quite high in place, but on most boats the stern is lowered, so you can climb into and out of the yacht from a tender, small dinghy. This yacht was different, and had a ladder lowered from the back. This was either up or missing. But they couldn't get back on the boat and eventually drowned, or were attacked by predators. Now I never jump in without thinking about this. Because you can't ever guarantee the person behind won't do the same. Imagine trying everything to get back to your screaming baby mere feet away and just being out of reach. It'd get dark. The wind might pick up and carry the boat away. Those final moments would be agony from such a simple mistake. Friend was having a beer in a tavern. Some guys came in and started messing with my friend. He moved seats twice and then got up to leave when one of the guys threw a punch. My friend threw one punch back and the guy he hit landed in the ICU and wasn't expected to live. Friend was sitting in jail just waiting for the guy he punched to either die or recover. Turns out the guy he punched recovered. Friend took a reduced charge of aggravated assault. A felony. One punch. Back when I was in middle school, we had a carbon monoxide leak on a state testing day. Someone was supposed to test for carbon monoxide over the weekend, but the guy showed up at the high school and not the middle school, and they ended up having to reschedule the whole thing. When they found out about the leak, everyone was in the middle of state testing, and they didn't want to evacuate the classrooms. Plus it was raining. So they held a shelter in place and tried to handle the situation, since it was in a room away from the classrooms. But then kids started passing out in the classrooms and vomiting and stuff. Several ambulances, 2 hours in the rain, and several school buses taking us all to stay in the elementary school building later. 3 students and 1 teacher's assistant died, and over 30 students ended up in the hospital. My mom came and got me from the elementary school and took me to the hospital. I was okay, but I went home and passed out for almost 2 days. My mom was about ready to drag me back, but then I started to feel better all around. Ducking crazy experience. My neighbor let his 15-year-old drive on the interstate coming back from a Florida vacation because he was tired. He crossed the line, flipped the vehicle, and the entire family ultimately didn't make it. I once listened to a guy telling the story of how, when he fell down the stairs, he desperately clutched onto the glass of wine he was carrying in order not to break it, instead of grabbing the railing to stop his fall. He survived with a broken hip, but I imagine lots of people probably have the same weird instinct, and some may not be able to tell the tale. The Halifax explosion. December 1917, a ship with a hell of a lot of explosives ran into another ship that was traveling on the wrong side of the shipping lanes. An explosion the equivalent of 3 kilotons of TNT killed nearly 2,000 people, caused a tsunami, and injured 9,000 people. Keeping in mind the recent Beirut explosion was close to 1 kiloton of TNT. Nigerian Airlines Flight 2120, operated by Nation Air, departed Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, after a maintenance worker re-inflated a tire with air instead of nitrogen. The tire heated up, burst, and caught fire during the takeoff roll. The landing gear was retracted into the aircraft and burned the air frac from the inside out. The fire caused a mid-air structural failure shortly before the pilots could return to Jeddah. My father's first wife was a flight attendant on that flight. Her and 260 others died. It remains the most deadly aviation accident involving a Canadian airline. I was working alone and fell off a ladder beside an empty shaft where stairs used to be. I fell 20 feet off the ladder down the shaft. I caught myself on a railing that had been left behind and hit the floor below. I got off really lucky. I was bruised up, and it took about 20 minutes till I could get up. If that railing wasn't there, I was probably dead, because I would have fallen 2 more floors to the basement. Also saw a guy who also fell off a ladder. He was 3 steps up, smashed his head, and got perma brain damage. A neighborhood kid I grew up with got his Honda all tricked out. He had an aftermarket remote start on it, back when those were rather new. Apparently the remote start activated while everyone was asleep. I guess the theory was he left the keys in his pants when he fell asleep. Car was in the garage. Entire household, parents, brother, sister, and Isaac all died. Pranking your friend by putting a revolver to your head with a bullet in it and forgetting which way the cylinder rotates. That happened to a kid I went to school with. He put a bullet in the cylinder and had his friend come upstairs to prank them by thinking they were going to shoot themselves. Pulled the trigger and bang, off went Tanner's brains and skull onto the walls. His friend never recovered from this and led to all sorts of problems. I think about this from time to time for some reason. Dude was a nice guy, as was his friend. Don't point a gun at anything you don't want to destroy, even if you know or think it isn't loaded. My mom is an orthopedic RN, and a few nights ago she had a patient, 19 male, who was in a severe car crash. He was passing a car in front of him on a 2-lane road and going at least 30 over the speed limit. He didn't see the oncoming car until there was a head-on collision. He killed the passenger of the other vehicle, injured himself and the driver of the other vehicle, and killed his grandmother in the passenger seat and his 12-year-old little brother in the back seat instantly. After he is discharged from the hospital, he'll be faced with not only 3 counts of vehicular manslaughter and up to 30 years imprisonment, but also the horror, guilt, and regret of having killed his grandmother and his brother, and the passenger of the other vehicle. Pay attention on the road and don't speed more than 10 miles over the limit. That is a recipe for disaster. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.